Can't hear you, Sean.
Hey guys.
Can hear you now.
Hey guys, I'm sorry about that. Welcome to Bajaao.com, everybody. And if you guys are streaming over YouTube or Facebook, we're very glad to have Mr. Audient for all term points and purposes for us today. Mr. Tanseer from The Inventory. We're very glad to have you today, this evening to talk about a very particular few products that we actually saw the videos of right now. It's the Evo and the ID series. Uh, They are pretty unique products to look at itself. We've got a bunch of specifications to talk through, and I'm gonna have Tansi just talk about a little bit about his history. He's been in the industry and making music as a producer and as a DJ, and part of the industry as running the inventory, distributing some really amazing brands. But yeah, why don't you talk about some of that music history and how you got about with Audience?
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me, and thanks to Bajaao for putting this together. It's always great to to meet and speak to fellow musicians, fellow sound engineers. Um, we're all kids at heart, no matter how old we get. All these the gear still excites us every day. So we at the Inventory we distribute Audient in India among many other brands, and I've been a producer DJ for over 20 years now. I think more like 25 years now. And we sort of got into the business because in India, much like Bajao sort of started getting into the business for similar reasons, is to try and bring about product distribution that went beyond just moving a box. We're all users, we all understand these products, we know what they are, and with Inventory, we want to sell only the very best products in their category. So that's really the foundation of what of why we do what we do. And so the brands that we've curated and we do sort of reflect that ideology. And Audient is a perfect example of that. Audient have been making consoles for nearly 20 years now. And for the last 5 years, they've started getting into making audio interfaces and sort of bringing their console technology into the mainstream and making it more accessible for a lot of people. So it's amazing what they've been able to do in a few short years. They've become one of the best-selling audio interface manufacturers in the world. So we've put together a small presentation to quickly run the guys through, and then at the end we can sort of take some Q&A and answer some questions. Are you able to see my screen?
Not right now.
Hang on. So now, are you guys able to see my screen?
No. Still, just you want to do a screen share?
Hang on, let me try switching this off and on again. Dun, dun. All right, let's try this one more time. Now, you guys see it
Yep.
now?
Yep.
Okay, great, fantastic, good. So we're going to briefly talk about what's new at Audient for 2021, as I briefly summarized about their background of making consoles, and they're a UK-based company, doing some amazing work. And right from building consoles for some of the biggest artists in the world, the list is really long, to making audio interfaces accessible to a lot of people. They've sort of stuck to one ideology, which is to not compromise on the kind of sound and the kind of quality that they stand for. Typically, most manufacturers will say, yeah, we've built consoles, we're 50 years old, whatever. But then when they actually put out these more affordable products, there's none of that technology of what's in that console in the product. But
Hmm.
Audience a bit different. So we're going to sort of get into that a little later. So what's the agenda? What would we like to really quickly talk about? This is sort of the few bits that I think would be interesting to sort of share with everybody and walk them through. So first up, for 2021, we have a fresh new look for audiences. Audience sort of revamped their whole image and sort of made it a little more modern. They have a fantastic new website, which you guys can, if you've not already gone and seen, you should go and see. It's a very cool website. The information is very clear, and you get a lot of good, relevant content from their website. So they have a nice, cool website for you all to sort of see. And here's the interesting bits: the three new products that were just launched and already available in India over actually the past month. So it's fantastic that we were able to get brand new products announced internationally and then pretty much immediately available in India. So that's fantastic. So we're going to talk about a couple of products within the ID range, which is the ID4 Mark II and the ID14 Mark II, and then also a bundle based on their Evo brand, which is the Evo 4 the start recording bundle. So
Mhm.
let's jump into the nitty gritties. Any is the pace okay, Sean? Are you guys able to hear me well? You're able to see the screen?
Crystal clear. Yeah, for sure.
All good? Okay, cool.
Yep,
Let's
yep.
keep going. So ID4 Mark II, for those of you who've been using Audient products would probably know of the ID4. It is one of their best-selling products. Really compact, really affordable audio interface that still brings over the same audio and sound quality. So what is big now is the amazing new converters that they've managed to put in here. Basically, the converters that I hear are actually the same converters that were in their much more expensive ID44. And they bring about a dynamic range of up to 126 dB. This is just insane. This kind of
Mm.
sound quality was earlier reserved for interfaces costing lakhs of rupees, really. So the fact that we're able to get that kind of sound quality in a small portable audio interface that runs off USB-C bus power is amazing. So because we have gone to USB-C, we're able to drive the headphones even louder now, even more. They have even more powerful headphone outs, and as has been typical for ID4, they're dual headphone output. So you see the small 3.5 jack
Mm.
and
Mm.
the bigger quarter-inch jack. The good thing is they can be used simultaneously as well. So in case you're in a room recording with a buddy and you want both of you want to listen to the headphones at the same time, you can do that. So that's really cool, and it still has the very same Audient console preamp. Now, this is the important bit that's relevant, and we'll sort of keep repeating that through the presentation. Is that the ID series has the exact same preamp as their console. It is not
Mm.
like, it is not from, it is the same thing. So that's the big difference.
That's pretty
And
awesome. Yeah.
absolutely. And they've gone for a nice new modern look with a more darker, Apple-esque space gray, if you will. So it looks really cool in person and has a nice. The LEDs are all white, so it looks very modern, very cool. And again, they're all bus powered over USB-C.
Okay.
So that's what's new with ID4.
There's a
Yeah.
question that someone's asked over here, just asking quickly about is the USB-C 2.0 or USB-C 3.0?
So
I'm
good
just
question.
going along.
It's on USB-C 3.0. The reason it's running off USB-C 3 is because USB-C 3 allows you a little more power over one cable. So which is why we no longer need a power adapter. So basically, to put this into perspective for numbers, a USB 2 port can only give you a maximum of 400 milliamperes of power per USB 2 port, whereas USB 3 and USB-C can go up to 900 milliamperes. That's how Audient are able to leverage that extra power and give you more powerful headphone outs, better converters, and so on. So that's how that extra power is utilized.
Hmm. Nice
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, please, please.
Ready for more? Okay, good. So that's a quick summary of all of the features. We have the Audient console preamp, the converters. The JFET DI is another fantastic little feature about the ID4. I think it's really underestimated how important and useful that is. Most interfaces will have a typical combo jack like you see here, which will take everything. To take your microphone line, everything, and it'll just have a switch that you will select. No, you don't really have a dedicated JFET DI like the ID series has. The advantage of that is you have a more natural, warm, valve-like tone sort of coming through. So instead of you buying a dedicated DI for your guitars or synths, you have that built into the interface. So that's really, really useful.
Mhm.
All of the other features are standard as you would expect with ID4. Any questions so far? Sean, or do we keep rolling?
No, you can keep rolling. I think there's a couple of questions that we can just kind of go back to. There's a couple of
Sure.
general questions, but yeah.
Okay, good. So here's a quick comparison chart of ID4 versus other products that we expect or rather we consider as its competition. Now, mind you, products like the Moto, the SSL are far more expensive products than what the ID series is. But we just want to highlight a few key things. The fact that you get a dedicated JFET DI. So for those of you who play guitars, this makes a massive difference. Um, the other features are similar. The big takeaway here is the sound quality. Just look at the difference here in terms of the dynamic range. A to D is analog to digital. basically when you record audio into your computer. That's the A to D, and D to A is what you hear back from your output. So that's the D, digital to analog. So on both sides, the ID Mark II series is a massive jump forward in terms of sound quality. These are again the kind of specs that you will see in interfaces costing lakhs of rupees. The fact that
Mhm.
you're now getting that kind of quality here is just absolutely spectacular. So that's the big deal about the sound quality of what you can expect with the ID4. Yep.
Yep, yeah, sweet. There's a couple of questions about just confirming whether this has phantom power. So I saw it was
Yes.
part of that point over there
Yes.
that it does
Yes.
have phantom power.
Yep. Yep. Yes, it does.
Yeah, yeah. A couple of other people have also kind of exclaimed in shock and horror, and I'm guessing also surprised about the fact about the inbuilt DI. So I think that is something which is
Yeah.
pretty unique. I mean, most of them wouldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
people would unknowingly plug in an electric
Miss
guitar
that. Yeah.
directly and not really understand the repercussions of doing that and not having the DI in front of that input
Yeah.
channel. So yeah, this solves that problem for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could go
Absolutely.
ahead. Yeah.
So let's move to the bigger brother, the ID14 Mark II. Again, like the smaller ID4, the ID14 Mark II received a big makeover on its sound quality. So it has the same amazing converters as the ID4 and the ID44, which again takes us up to 126 dB dynamic range. They've also implemented the dual headphone outs like we had on the ID4. So here again, you have very powerful headphone amps that can drive headphones up to 600 ohms, which is amazing. Typically, most interfaces are not able to drive headphones that are a little more hungry, but these are able to do that. And you have both the jacks here, and again you can use them simultaneously, which is really cool. And you have two dedicated Audient console preamps, and of course you have the optical in, which allows you to expand another 8 channels. So this little box can do 10 channels of input recording at the same time via this expansion. And of course you do have the JFET DI in front as well. See somebody asking whether it supports a 3.5 jack. Yes, it does. That's right over here for the headphones. Keep rolling.
What's the-
Any
Yep,
questions
yep.
that you want
What's
to
the
hold on?
maximum supported sample rate? I think that was
Um,
also mentioned up there.
yeah. So I will, when we scroll down, we'll see that here. So we still do. So the ID series have optimized for 2496. So the reason for 2496 is because you get the best of the usable sound quality by recording. Even if you're having an interface that's capable of recording up to 192, you have to understand that almost nobody is able to record at 192 and play back all of their recordings, because the machines to run that is incredibly powerful and demanding. So instead of trying to give something that's unusable, most of us are recording at
Mm,
4824. This goes up to 2496. The goal is about optimizing sound quality for what we can use, for
mm,
usable sound quality. And for almost all of us, 96 is more than what we need. So this is a bit like photography. Just because my camera can take 24 megapixels versus your camera taking 12 megapixels, it doesn't necessarily mean the 24 megapixel camera is automatically better.
Phantom.
That's the key. So
Mhm,
it's exactly like that. A 12 megapixel camera that's more optimized and can take better low noise photos is probably better than one that's a higher resolution but doesn't really give you the best output. So that's the key point as far as that is concerned.
mhm,
Somebody had asked about DSP, and yes, this does have a DSP mixer app that allows you to do a lot of really cool customization for the additional 8 inputs. Up to 10 inputs that you have, you can customize, create dedicated cue mixes. You can in fact customize these buttons to do different things with the ID14. You can set up these buttons to do things like dim or mute or the scroll control,
Talkback
which
and stuff.
basically, yeah, absolutely. So a lot of really cool monitoring functions can be set up in the inbuilt mixer for the ID14. So that makes the ID14 a lot more advanced and can do a lot of really cool things. So you could just plug in and use this without ever opening that app for the most part. But once you get into the app, you can actually start to exploit its full potential.
Uh,
Yeah,
I think there's a couple of questions about how to record a couple of arrangements like bass guitar, electric guitar, and vocals simultaneously, and which to go for. So I think that we could come down to when we're
yeah,
talking about how to choose your interface.
yeah, yeah. So let's jump into the ID14's comparison chart.
Hmm.
And here's the really interesting part in this one. All of these interfaces are significantly more expensive than the ID14. In fact, the Aero is something like 40 plus thousand rupees, and so is the Claret. Why are we bringing in far more expensive interfaces into this comparison? The fact that we are boldly, openly bringing in far more expensive interfaces is to show that it still beats them both in terms of sound quality and in terms of functionality. So whether it is the JFET DI, the fact that you can expand this up to 10 channels, so the same interface can develop and grow into a 10-channel recording system. The fact that you can have customizable talkback functionality set up using the ID mixer that we spoke about. And of course, the same amazing sound quality with both the dynamic range on the inputs and the outputs, which are absolutely class leading and blow away anything, anything on the market right now at this price point. Or actually even above, even twice its price, actually. Yep.
Yep.
Keep moving.
Yep.
So let's talk about what's great about the ID series. With the launch of the ID4 and the 14, we now have all three products, which is the bigger ID44, ID14, and the ID4. All three are now using the same amazing converters. So you get the same sound quality whether you buy an ID44 or a 14 or a 4. This was not the case earlier, but it is so now. All feature the same amazing console preamp. Can you guys guess where this picture was taken? Really quickly, 10 seconds, quick guess. Where's this photo from? Which part of the world is this photo from? This could probably be your question. Actually, no, I'm going to give the answer. Quickly, come on, let me see. Who's gonna guess? Which part of the world is this from?
Any takers?
Everyone's too scared to comment. This is an amazing studio that has a brand new Audient 8024 console in Kerala, India. We installed this last year. It's a fantastic console. Why are we showing this console? We're showing this because even today, Audient are making and installing these amazing consoles the world over. It's a spectacular sounding console. And the good news is the input section, the preamp section of this very console lives in these interfaces.
Lovely.
So
I mean that's I think
that's the key part.
value.
The key part with the ID series is that they're not, and this isn't this isn't saying we have a history of making. It's a bit like saying, hey, we have a history of making something else, but we're just going to put our name on something and then it's going to be something else. That's the point. So the ID series, and it also explains why they have ID and Evo. So they're sort of targeting two different kind of audiences and two different demographics in terms of what they are about. But the ID series will always have the same console preamp. That's the cool, that's the really cool part. And that's what really makes the ID series stand out. So it is by far and away the best sounding preamps you can get, in the price category at the moment, easily.
Lovely. I think a bunch of people took a couple of shots at the places that you to guess, and they was all London and stuff like that in the UK. But yeah,
maybe there was a lag before which we. Yeah, but yeah, it's amazing. This is in
revealed.
Kerala. The studio is Montesonic. It's the guy is Varun Krishna. He studied in the UK. He worked in Abbey Roads and many other top studios, and came back and put an Audient on his in his dream studio. It's a fantastic studio. It really is. So yeah, this isn't sales speak. This is the real deal. We really do have that console preamp in that interface, which you can buy. So that's amazing. You can really get a piece of the Audient console on your desktop. So let's quickly switch gears to another new product under the Audient brand, but the Evo brand is a different sub-brand of Audient, and they have a slightly different feature set and targeting a slightly different customer. So that's how they're sort of separating the two. So they've made this really cool start recording bundle, which could be perfect for someone just starting out and wanting all of the key products in one. You get a headphone, you get an XLR cable, you get a large diaphragm microphone along with the shock mount and the mounting. So this is all that you get included in the start recording bundle. You get the amazing Evo 4 audio interface. You get the SR1. The Evo 4 audio interface is something that I have over here, and I had the ID series as well. So the Evo 4 has cool things like the smart gain function and full digital control. So the digital control that the Evo brings is pretty cool and offers some different functionality. In addition to, of course, I think some of you may or may not know, but this interface has the ability to, this big green button allows you to set the gain automatically for your inputs. So you basically select the input, hit this green button, start playing or singing, it'll pick the gain for you automatically. The cool thing is you can go in and tweak that gain if you want later. It's not set in stone. It's a fantastic helping hand. So think of the
Mm.
interface as your own little helper. Most of us are working alone at home, or alone late at night, and you want to get stuff done. So having something that works quickly and helps you get the job done is really useful. So also the digital control allows you to control all of the interfaces functionality directly from your laptop or desktop, even without having to touch the interface. So those are some really cool modern features that you get with the Evo 4.
So it kind of pre-optimizes the channel ready for input of any kind. Does it vary?
So you,
Does it vary in any way? Like, does it
so
change and
if
modify
so
itself
so
along the line?
basically so basically say you want to record your vocals and your guitar. Okay, plug in your guitar here in the GI input. You plug in your microphone at the back. You can The cool part is you don't have to do just one at a time. You could select both the inputs and hit smart gain, then it will start listening to both the inputs. So you could play your guitar, start
Hmm.
singing, and it will select the right gain for vocals and your guitar automatically, immediately. So
Hmm.
imagine being able to set gains for both straight away. So that's super useful. And if you needed to tweak it, you can just still select any input and go ahead and tweak that if you want.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
So quick specifications run through. Evo 4 has been around for a little while, so most of you probably know it, but here's a quick run through of the functionality and what the Evo 4 does.
Hmm.
Quick run through of the included products with the start recording bundle. You get the very cool SR1, the condenser microphone, and you get the shock mount, which is unique. Most studio packages don't really offer you the shock mount. So this does. And then you have a really nice sounding headphone. Honestly, when I heard the headphones, I was surprised that damn, even for a bundled product, this headphone sounds really good. So I was really pleasantly surprised by how good it sounds. As you can see, it looks and it's built really well. Very nice build quality, and they're closed back. So if you're recording, there's no bleed because they're closed
Hmm.
back. So that really helps. So here's a quick comparison chart with probably the most popular studio bundle on the market. So we're looking to talk, one is to one to that. So in terms of number of microphones and inputs, as you can see here, this also has two mic inputs plus your JFET DI in front and your headphone output in the other. So you have two ins and two outs, similar to the competition. It has a dedicated JFET DI, which is unique to this product, which the competition doesn't have. And also, really quickly talking about sound quality, the Evo, the converters in the Evo do about 113 dB dynamic range, both in the input and output. That's significantly better than your, everything in the price range, like your Scarletts and all of the other products that are there in that category. So the Evo does have significantly better sound quality than its competition. In addition to amazing smart functions like smart gain, smart loopback, smart touch points, and the smart muting. So smart muting is something cool, and I think it's worth talking about for a second. So what happens is, as we said, this most of us are working alone, right? Or we're working in the same room with somebody. So when we are going to record, so say you're playing back, your music on your monitors, and when you want to record, you want to immediately cut off your monitors and only listen to yourself on the headphones, right? So when you
Yep.
plug in your headphones, it automatically cuts off the monitors. It does this automatically so you do not have any bleed in your recordings. How many times have we guys recorded in the same room and realized that there was some bleed from the monitors or some bleed from the headphone that was coming through there? How many times have we had that?
Hmm.
So to eliminate that problem, it automatically cuts it off.
Yeah.
So that's really useful. So the moment you unplug your headphones, automatically you start listening to music back on your monitor. So that's really cool. Um, so that's all of the smart functionality. I think somebody was asking about the ID series versus Evo series. So
Hmm.
we're gonna have a quick chat about what sort of makes these two. So to put it simply, the both of them are amazing sounding interfaces, no two ways about that. But the ID series brings the true Audient console preamp into its range. The Evo series uses a different version of it. It's not the exact console preamp, but they're still fantastic preamps that have been customized for digital control. So there is a difference in how it is controlled. Over here, you get the same Audient studio console workflow experience. What do we mean by that? They all have dedicated switches and knobs and dials that you can customize and set up your monitoring. Here, it's a more simplified interface that gets the job done, which for some people might be even more useful to be able to get a lot of work done quickly. So you have aids like your smart muting, loop back and the smart touch points that allow you to customize and get a lot of stuff done quickly with the Evo. So I would say the Evo series is ideal for those looking for something simple and something that sounds great and something that gets the job done quickly. The ID series is for those that want the best sound quality and the best preamps that they can get. That's the simplest way I can put it.
Does make sense. Also, there's a question in here up there. Do the ID series have the same preamps which are on the ASP 4816?
Yes,
Uh, yeah. So I
exactly.
think these are.
The exact same preamp design. The exact same.
There's a couple of questions. Let's just see if we can go through those. Just seeing between the comparisons because there are a couple of
Mhm.
people who asked.
That's about it as far as the presentation is concerned. So we're open to some questions that helps clarify some doubts that people have.
There's a couple of questions about using the console through a dynamic using a dynamic mic through it.
Yep.
So is a
I
question, can an
see.
Evo drive an
Yes, sir.
SM7B or something like
Yep.
that?
Yeah, and Evo can drive an SM7B. I think there are some videos on YouTube showing that as well. So here's the other interesting thing about gain. Let's talk about gain for a second. So I see some people on YouTube saying, hey, I have my gain on 12 o'clock and I have a competing product's gain on 12 o'clock, and this is louder or that is louder. First things first, every interface has these knobs calibrated differently. So simply saying 12 o'clock of this versus 12 o'clock of that is not entirely the fair way to compare, because some of these knobs have their gain, majority of the gain towards the later part. The cool thing about Evo is if you were having a dynamic mic or something like the SM7B, you could crank the gain all the way and not get noise. That is what makes the Audient preamps, both in the Evo and the ID, so special. You could go all the way and it would still be clean.
Okay,
Most
and
interfaces, you go all the way and then you hear a lot of noise. Not so with the Audient.
that's just particularly just how they were designed to operate
Yes.
because of the
So again, it's
console
about it's
environment.
about it's about optimizing the sound quality for this platform. So while the design of the console, the design of the preamp is exactly the same as what you get in the ID series, what they do is they optimize it for bus power, where even if you go all the way, all the gain that's available. For example, you get up to 58 dB of gain with the ID 14. With the consoles, you might get 65 because it has much bigger power supplies, right? Obviously, but you were able to get that full 58 dB without noise. That's the key. So if you go look at a spec
Hmm.
sheet, it might say this 58 and this is 60. So does this have more gain? But this 60 or this 65 of some competing interfaces are way more noisier than this 58. So
Hmm.
usable gain is all the way. That's the big thing.
Sure, I think that's critical in how they've
Yep.
designed their stuff with the
Yep.
usability of it. It's no point of
Absolutely.
having stuff which you can have to like leave
Exactly.
in the cupboard.
Exactly.
There's a question about where do you-
So somebody's asking about the max gain. The Evo series does about 56, if I remember right, dB of gain, and I think the ID series does 58 or 60. I'm not sure. It's one of the two. I don't remember exactly now, but I think it's 58 or 60.
There are a couple of
But
good
again,
questions
usable. Yeah.
about the smart gain thing too. Does the
Yep.
smart gain tech in the Evo 4 work pretty well while blending mic as well as guitar preamps
Yeah.
together?
It does.
So,
It does. As I was just saying. So here's a cool thing. Yeah. So here's a really interesting thing. So as I was saying, there's a bigger brother to this called the Evo 8, right, which has 4 preamps and 2 DIs. So the cool thing about that is you could have all 4 preamps listening to smart gain simultaneously. So imagine if you had 2 guitars and 2 microphones. You basically select both together like this and hit this, and then it's now listening to all the inputs simultaneously. So you could just be playing, 2 people could be playing guitars, 2 people could be singing, and it's listening to all 4 inputs and setting the gain smartly for all 4 inputs. That's how cool it is.
hmm.
So it's
So I
super
think that
useful.
there's a question over here.
I have a confession to make. Okay, me being the old pessimistic snob that I am, when Audient first showed us the product and said it does smart gain, I said, man, why are you making these gimmicky things? Nobody's going to use all these gimmicks. I swear that's literally how we reacted. But after I used it, that's when I really appreciated that it does really do what it says, and most importantly, it's a helping hand.
Hmm.
Imagine somebody started off and gave you a good helping hand to get your gains at the right level. So
Hmm.
9 out of 10 times we have realized that the Evo sets the smart gain correctly. The one-off chance that it doesn't get it perfect, it's easy to just go in and tweak it. And the
Sure.
Evo app that is available with this and with the Evo 8 actually shows you all of the levels. So you don't
Hmm.
have to depend on the LEDs if you don't want. The app will show you everything. In fact, it has a very cool talkback mixer that allows you to get, if you're into live streaming, then the talkback mixer will allow you to not just your inputs and outputs, but also the streams that are coming in. You can manage all of that with a dedicated talkback mixer. So some really amazing functionality at this price point. It's like baffling how much they've managed to pack in into something so small. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think what you said also kind of like negates what one of the summary that someone put up here is. So ID series is for pro users and the Evo is for beginners, which I don't think really would make sense. It's
Yeah,
also about how you only manage your time, how you kind of
yeah,
what your application of
absolutely,
the products are. Because I
absolutely.
think having those
Ab-
kind of fast gains would be a time saver, and I think with someone who's probably like writing jingles or working with a band and stuff like that, and like you said, working themselves to be
yeah,
able
yeah,
to keep going back and forth to console to
so I
adjust
want
gain
to, so I
knobs.
want to, so I want to openly talk about two things. One is that it's the simplified version of the summary is a very simple. It's not wrong, but
Yeah.
it's an oversimplified version of the
Hmm.
summary. The interesting thing is that even with the Evo 4, we actually had the Evo 4 up against when it came out before the ID Mark II last year. We had it up against some much more expensive interfaces, and in a blind test, people couldn't really tell the difference, to be honest.
Hmm.
So unless you're listening to very high quality monitors in a proper space, you may not tell the difference in sound quality between these two. So I would say think a lot about in terms of the kind of usability and the kind of workflow that's useful. The other thing I want to talk about is the smart muting aspect of it. We see a lot of comments on YouTube or in some of the reviews saying, "Oh, the headphone cuts off automatically," but I think that smart muting function is something that's misunderstood because um, 99% of places where this is being used, it's being used in a place where you're recording and mixing in one room, right? If you were in an environment where you're monitoring and recording and playing back in one room, and you had a control room where, say, a singer is or an artist is, then you want to feed a mix to the artist and
Hmm.
you want to listen to the monitors. In such a scenario, the Evo 8 is the right product for you, or you
Hmm.
could even do the ID series. But other than that, 99% of the time, aren't all of us working in the same room? There is not one single scenario where you want the headphones and monitors at the same time. Not one. I can say this as a sound engineer
Yeah.
because imagine if you're monitoring using your monitors, right? And if your headphone is playing, I have personally made mistakes where I've heard, hey, wait, I can hear something, and I've spent half an hour only to realize my damn headphones was also on, and that extra
Just
little
adding a
irritation that
little
I was
bit.
hearing, exactly, I was hearing it from my headphones, right?
Hmm.
After half an hour of fiddling, I realized that, oh shit, the sound is not coming from the monitors, it's coming from here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
yeah, for
and
sure.
vice and vice versa. If you had the headphones on, you don't want any bleed from the monitors, right?
Correct.
So now you manually go and turn it down, but with this you don't have to. So
Hmm.
that's the cool part about being able to simplify the workflow. That's what I like about the Evo. It just simplifies our day-to-day use.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I think there was a question that also we can go into with that point. Can we manually override the smart headphone
Of
monitor
course,
cutoff?
absolutely. And that's again seems to be some misunderstanding. Some of the YouTube reviews seem to oversimplify this and don't really explain this. So the smart gain works by you select the input, click smart gain, it's listening, and then you don't have to. It sort of shows you the levels here, and you don't have to go ahead and you either can continue recording or you just come back, press this input again, and then change the gain if you
Check it
want.
out.
Or if you had the mixer app open, then you could just adjust the gain there too. So of
Hmm.
course you can override it. As I said, think of it as a smart assistant with you.
Hmm.
It's not meant to tell you exactly how much gain you need. If you it can give you a great starting point. But honestly, it's been done so right with this. 9 out of 10 times it does it right. You don't have to change anything. They've already taken into account the keep your keep your peaks at -6 and your RMS at -12. All these
Hmm.
things are already baked into it. So it's already listening for that kind of levels. So we
Hmm.
don't have to worry. We don't have to think about it recording too hot or too soft. It sort of gets it right. You
Hmm.
could override it. Yes, that's the short
Yeah,
answer.
it's like a filter on your photo apps and
Yep.
stuff on phone. So it'll give you
Yep.
a preset, but yeah, you can obviously fine tune it.
Hey, somebody's asked a question about does it work well with Logic Pro X? So here's the cool part about Logic Pro X. The gain, because it's remote controllable, you can actually have the gain adjusted from inside Logic Pro without touching this.
Hmm.
How cool is that? And the other cool thing is you can actually save those gain settings. So when you close and open the session, it will recall those gain settings. Those are the advantages of having digital recall.
Hmm. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. Both 48-volt power to both the same. Yeah, it can do 48 volts. So again, the same concept. Press 48 volts, select the input, so you can either have it enabled for one or both. Yeah.
Does
And if
does the Evo have a high Z or DI input for guitars and
yes,
basses?
yes, 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 it does the same way. It does. Yeah. Does the ID14 and ID44 have the same preamps? Yes, they do. The same preamps and the same converters. The 44, 14, and 4 are all same right now in terms of sound quality. Only the inputs, outputs are different.
What about latency? Is Mr. Rohit Rana's question.
Latency is, all of these have direct monitoring enabled. So if you're recording and playing back, then you don't even need to depend on that. But otherwise, if you're playing back and working in the box, the latency is exceptionally low. I believe it's about 5 milliseconds or lower round trip at 48 kilohertz. But it's exceptionally low. And in all the years of using it, we've never had to go any lower than the latency that it does. So it's absolutely not an issue.
I think there's a question about what's the bundled software in the DAW. I think we get two bass widgets, right?
You get something called the Audient ARC bundle, the ARC bundle. So they keep adding new stuff to it. So I think currently you get Cubase LE and a bunch of other free plugins with it. Lowest buffer size is 32 ms, and I think at that 32 at 32 samples, I'm sorry, at 32 samples, I think it can do about less than 4 seconds round trip or 3.5, if I remember right. And also the recently Audient, another important point is recently Audient updated the warranty on all of these products to 3 years. And unlike some competition that claims warranty for how many ever years but doesn't really honor it, Audient are fantastic with their warranty. So they believe their products to be of such good quality that they've gone ahead and made all the Audient products a 3-year warranty now.
That's pretty awesome, man. And
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
there was a question above also about service and warranty, where, if that is done in India, and I
Yep,
can address
that's
that
taken
over.
care of that. Yeah.
As retailers, you can get in touch with us, we can get in touch with the inventory, or you all can get in touch with, and we're all here to help. So if you
Yep,
have
absolutely.
an official Audient product, we will always be able to help and support getting it back on track or helping you out solve any issues you have. There's a question, is it good with the Newman U87,
Yes,
any kind of Newman mics? I think
absolutely.
there
Yeah,
was a couple of conversations that we had earlier about the true
Phantom Power.
phantom
Yeah.
power as well. Maybe we
So
can cover that point.
yeah, so I think most bus powered interfaces, especially the older ones, that were running on the USB 2 bus. Everybody claimed phantom power, but not all of them gave the full 48-volt consistently. So they would give phantom power, but it will vary between 44, 42, 43, like that.
Hmm.
Audient pride themselves in giving true 48-volt consistently. So even really expensive mics like the U87,
Hmm.
which is nearly 2 lakhs, even those mics will perform at their very best with these interfaces all the time. That's the key. Somebody's
That's
asking if
make
we
a
can
difference.
expect the Mark II version for the ID44 anytime soon. No, there is no Mark II version coming because it's sort of consolidated between the ID4, 14, and the 44 right now. At least for now, there's no talks of an update because all three are now on the same level in terms of sound quality.
There's some questions about the build quality. Is the Evo 4 made of the same material as the ID series? Since you have both, why don't you just like
Yeah.
hold them both up
So
if you.
so basically, this is the ID series is a metal build quality, and this is a plastic build quality. But let me tell you that even though it's plastic, it's built very well. And how many of us are really throwing these around to really see which bends or breaks first?
Hmm.
Um, the ID series is obviously built of metal, so I would say it's got stronger components from an exterior point of view. But the Evo series is still fabulously built, and honestly, for all practical uses, it's perfectly fine. It's a really compact, nice finish, nice matte finish. I think it's really good in terms of the build quality. Is nothing to worry there.
Someone did ask about why is it so small though. I mean, it does help in being portable.
Yeah, so the goal with this was to make it as compact as we can, and make it easy to for you to take up less space, and also throw it in a bag and go around. You know what the interesting thing is? I actually use this over here at home. and I have some monitors here, and this interface actually ends up sitting in the corner of my desk where I don't even touch it because everything is digitally controlled. There's just an app on my on the computer which I can control volume, the phantom power, gain, everything is available on the app. So I actually don't even touch this, which is one of the cool things about digital control.
I mean, that is pretty new. I mean, I've
It
never really
is
actually
no
had
it.
one, but
So
like it would be pretty
this
nice to
whole
not
remote,
having to keep
yeah,
touch
yeah, yeah,
knobs.
exactly. This whole remote control functionality again was available at interfaces costing lakhs of rupees earlier.
Hmm.
You know where they started in studios. You have remote control preamps with racks over there. How would you go touch a rack all the time? Would you go touch a rack to change
Yeah.
gain? You wouldn't, right? So they have basically brought that kind of remote controllable preamps into this.
A couple of questions about compatibility on other DAWs. I'm pretty sure I think these would be compatible with Ableton, and yeah,
Yes,
I think we've covered
it's
those
universally
questions.
compatible. Yeah, it's universally compatible with all DAWs. Let me just let my dog out 1 second. Go on. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so they work. Yeah, so they are universally compatible with all DAWs.
Okay. Is a question from Shrihar. We get specialized drivers from Audient, or do we use ISO for all?
You get dedicated drivers from Audient as your drivers for Windows. So on the
Hmm.
Mac, it runs on the core audio drivers that are built into the Mac, but on Windows, you get dedicated drivers from Audient. And all the app, the Mixer app, the TalkBack functionality, all that stuff is run through the app.
I think your dog's made an impression. Everyone wants to know what's
Yeah,
your
he
dog's
has.
name.
His name is Pablo, and we named
Oh,
him. We got him 5 years ago, and my wife and I were very busy binge watching
Marcos.
Narcos at that time, and then we named him Pablo after that. Yeah.
Sweet. Can you control gains settings in FL Studio just like Logic Pro? I think so. With the app, you can kind of like just set your.
Yeah, you can. I don't know if Logic Pro supports. This is a feature that Fruity Loops needs to support versus Audience supporting, because from inside
Okay.
Fruity Loops they should be able to control gain. Logic allows you to do that, so they have that functionality built in. Somebody says it's I heard it's compatible with all dogs. Yeah, it is compatible with all dogs. Yeah. So the scroll control ID series, does it work with Studio One? Yes, it does. Actually, you know what? The scroll control, which basically is you could set the ID button over here, and when you turn the dial, you can have this control whatever the cursor is on. So anything that your cursor is on, whether it is a knob or a fader, or even if you would be so cool as to use it to browse the web, you could scroll using this. So you have a really cool scroll control that takes control of anything that your mouse is over, and it actually has a click function as well, which I guess you could hear that. So the
Hmm.
click function quickly does a mute. Very cool. So this encoder, again, the quality of the encoder, all that is amazing with the ID series. So those are the differences really with the way the interfaces are laid out. So those are the things that you should consider and pick up depending on what you like.
We can just take a couple of more questions that you think
Is it
are
is it bus
relevant.
powered, or do you need to give additional power? No, they're all USB-C bus powered. That's the cool thing. You don't need any more, nothing else you need at the moment except bus power. How's the scene with iOS? It works with iOS. You need a camera connection kit, and they will all work with iOS. In fact, they will all work with an Android phone that has USB-C, because USB-C gives enough power. So you could technically plug in any Android phone with USB-C directly to this and use this as a mobile recording interface. Works really well. We know somebody uses this with an Android phone for field recordings. Sean,
Yep. Yep.
any more questions?
Now I'm just reading the comments, and people are pretty excited about the Evo in particular. It's going to be a game changer. The mute is cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a cool interface. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very
No, I
cool.
think I think we can just if we can spot any interesting questions that you think you would want to address. I think we've covered most of the points that we would want to cover about these interfaces in particular.
So somebody asked, I've heard that when the headphones are connected, the monitor is disconnected. Is it really annoying? I think we spoke specifically
Hmm.
about that, the smart muting function, and how it's designed to not have any bleed. So people who saying, in some ways, I think it's a bit like wanting it all, even if it's not useful. You want, if you're in the same room, you want the headphones to go off when the monitors are on. It is necessary. That's the right way to do it. Otherwise, you're going to have bleed from both places. So that would really help eliminate those bleed issues. So it's a
Hmm.
hugely useful feature. So that's why it's a feature. It's not an issue, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's marketed as a smart pin feature, and I definitely think it helps. The only scenario where I can think where you need the headphones and the monitors at the same time is if you're feeding the interface to another room. Then you're going to need something like the Evo 8. In every other scenario, you want the headphones off. If you were recording with somebody in the same room, why would you need the headphones and the monitors on? There's going to be a lot of bleed. So in
Hmm.
no scenario in the same room, you're going to need both at the same time. Somebody asked
Uh,
difference between Evo 4 and 8. Evo 8 has four microphone inputs and it has two pairs of monitor outputs. So that helps you connect two pairs of either monitors, or if you want to send a separate Q mix to another room, all those functionalities are possible because you have two independent Q mixes, one for yourself and one for somebody else. So that's a more advanced interface that has a little more functionality for wider setups. For those who are just recording themselves or working alone, the Evo 4 should have you covered.
is it Dante compatible? Is the
No,
question.
it's not
No?
Dante compatible.
Yeah, I think other than that, we're pretty going
Yeah,
back to the older questions about the JFET instrument input and
yeah. So the JFET instrument input really helps if you're recording guitars rather than trying to rely on a completely the same combo jack. Having a dedicated JFET DI that's has the circuitry that emulates valve amplifiers gives you a much nicer tone when you're recording your guitars for sure.
Hmm. No, I think so. I think it's pretty clear, or at least what the options are available between
Yep.
the Evo and the ID series, and that's a. I think it. I hope we've not kind of let the people wanting to find out more about both, so kind of like
Yeah.
left them a little bit of a confusion there. But I think that like you said, the summary of it would not be too simple to just say that it's a beginner or a intermediate or a
Yeah.
pro guy. It's
It's
about the application.
Yeah,
So
and the feature set. Look at the feature set, see which feature set appeals to you more, and that's probably the better way to choose. If I were choosing it, I would choose in the feature set. If the best preamps and the best sound quality is the only factor, ID series for sure. But
hmm,
if the smart muting, all the smart functionality, the loop map mixer, and all of the other bits are relevant to you, then the Evo series.
the Evo for sure.
Yeah.
Just one question that I spotted over there: if would you want to bet on the Evo bundle itself, or pick the and or create your own bundle?
If you don't have a headphone and a microphone already, then it makes a lot of sense to get the bundle. If you have a headphone and microphone, then of course it makes no sense to get the bundle. So and as I said, the bundle sound quality is really good. The headphones really impressed me
Hmm.
for the price point and the fact that they come bundled. It's really good. It's
And it's
fantastic, the kind
also
of quality. Yeah.
and also it doesn't really have anything else required to kind of start off
Yeah.
with. So even if for
Exactly.
someone who
Exactly.
mentioned, I think earlier
Even
about podcasts and even
yeah,
something like that, you just
it's
can.
perfect. Yeah, and it's even got it even comes with the shock mount, which is super
Hmm.
useful, and nobody else gives you a shock mount in their bundles at this price point, so that's really useful as well.
Fair enough. I think it's been pretty informative and
Yeah,
enjoyable, uh, dogs included. So
dogs
I think
included.
that's all. We can never really
I
ask
hope it
for
was
lesser
hope
of
it was
them.
enjoyable for most of
For
you.
sure, for sure.
I
We'll give
hope.
you. I'll let you decide maybe like what's the one of the best questions or something like that that we would pick, and maybe we'll get back to the people with their prizes in a little bit. So we'll get back in touch with you guys later. It's been a pleasure, Tanseer, and I hope
Thank
you've
you
had
so
fun
much
and
to you and
answering some of
Bajao.
these questions too. And we should do this
Absolutely.
again. We should do this again a little bit more in depth. Maybe take a look at some of the, maybe hear some of these demos next time, and maybe
Yep.
we can take some more questions from from the many people who are quite interested.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks to Bajao and thanks to all of you for tuning in. We really appreciate that, and thank you for having me. I look forward to speaking to you all again.
Thank you so much, Tanseer. And from all of us from Bajaao, till the next time we see you, which should be, I think, somewhere in the end of this week on Friday, do log into our YouTube channel and on Facebook and like and subscribe. See you guys soon. Good night,
Bye.
Tanseer.